We're SlikRok Productions. I'm Jake. This is Kurt. And we used to do a ton of videos back in the day when we were first getting into portals, talking about instructions how to put them on, just a whole gamut surrounding portals. And we haven't let that go. A lot of behind the scenes have gone on, but a lot of these topics kind of get a little redundant to us.
Right.
And we were having this conversation that there's a lot of people who have come into the industry or weren't interested in portals then, but are interested in portals now. So we wanted to take a minute and talk about portals, our experience, and kind of rewind the clock on some of those topics.
Right. We've noticed that over the last 6 months or so, we've been getting a lot of questions of people who are interested in buying portals, but they've heard a lot of bad stuff, or people who have purchased portals, but they're having some problems with their cars.
Right.
And we kind of realized that we used to address this stuff a lot. We used to try to get ahead of this, and we haven't done it for a while.
Yeah.
And
we've been doing it, but it's just been individually in comments and stuff.
We haven't done it in this manner. We've been doing it through via questions on the internet. And so we thought we'd rewind it back a little bit and talk about kind of how we started, what our expectations were, why, and how we got to where we are now with portals.
Exactly.
As I recall, when we started wheeling together, we young lads, we had so much life ahead of us, more hair. When we got into the razor world, we were breaking a lot of parts. We wanted to run bigger tires for more clearance, and in return, we were adding a lot of preload to our suspension, which was giving us bad axle angles. We were tearing up belts, tearing up axles, breaking a lot of parts.
Trying to run bigger tires, you were getting into your light truck tires, which for a UTV are not light tires.
No, we ran a lot of truck tires at one point in our life, and we'll circle back around that and the bad stuff that we used to do. But once we started running portal cars, what we realized, the fear was when we were doing it, well, obviously is the investment. The second thing was the longevity of it. Yeah. And then the third was how it's going to perform, how it's going to handle. Is it worth putting the money into it? Are we going to get what we want out of it? Right. You know, and what we did notice when we, right out of the gate, the first week we put portals on, we didn't lose power because the gear reduction with the big tires offsets. Right.
Let's back it up a second. What problems were we having before we did the portals? What were the common failures that we kept running into?
Axles and belts, I would say, were the two top. Obviously belts because of the big tires, and axles because of the driveline angles from the preload we were putting on them. I remember we actually built a chase vehicle to carry parts at one time, and we used to chew through a lot of components. And it wasn't just those. I mean, it was your occasional ball joints and radius rod and you know, tie rod ends and, you know, blah, blah, blah.
It's funny, but we really were coming down to of packing food and things like that, or bringing more parts.
Right. You know, it was a guarantee that we were going to go out and we were going to wrench, basically. And so our goal was we wanted to not do that anymore. We wanted, and obviously when you start adding the dollars spent, you know what I'm saying? I would ask anybody this who wheels hard, what do you spend in axles a year, in parts a year? How much stuff do you break? When you start tallying that up, if you build a car properly, does it save you money in the long run? That's kind of where we were, right?
Yep.
So anyway, so the first time we put portals on, we went out and wheeling. What we did notice, number one, was the ride quality. We were able to take the preload out of our shocks because it's basically a long travel kit. Yep. When you add a portal to a car, you're adding length to your A-arm, to your trailing arm. And obviously the longer it is, the more articulation you get. So we got that out of it. You got a better ride quality, they articulated better, which made it better for rock crawling. And we also noticed that we weren't breaking axles anymore and we weren't chewing through belts anymore.
Because the three things you get with portals are added width, gear reduction, plus, depending on which portal you go with, the 4, 6, or 8 inch
clearance. Right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you know, and we had a lot of concerns when we were doing it. You know, it's like when you're, you know, putting a 4-inch lift on your car, you're obviously for rock crawling, you're taking it up higher. So center point and balance was a concern. What we did take into account with the first cars that we were building was, you're taking the car up 4 inches higher, you're making it 8 inches wider, and you're putting a lot more rolling mass at the bottom. You're actually putting a lot more weight at the bottom side. So stability was actually a lot better. Yes. And with articulation and stability being better, all of a sudden we were building rock crawlers. Yeah. And then
exactly. And then
ching, came out the money part. Then we started breaking A-arms and trailing arms and radius rods and steering racks and ball joints and tie rod ends and ripping tabs off of cars and everything you could imagine. We pretty much failed at some point.
Yep.
And so SlikRok kind of started. We decided a long time ago, back when we had like 500 followers, that we weren't going to talk shit about other people or other companies. We were going to talk about things we had success with. We were going to talk about things that worked, and we were going to recommend things that we knew were valid.
Exactly, because that was our whole goal at that point. At that time, when we were having so many issues with components, we started the hunt of what can we do to make a portal car successful.
Right.
Go out there, have a good experience, and back to the trailer with the least amount of carnage.
Right. And over time, we've accomplished this. But there was a year and a half, 2 years there where we were trying a lot of parts, trying a lot of different configurations, and we had plenty of failures, and we spent a lot of money. And I know that everybody thinks like, oh, it'd be great to be SlikRok. Everybody just throws parts at you. Yeah, it hasn't always been like that. You guys, it's like we spent years of buying and spending a ton of money. And we do have companies that help us and take care of us now, and thank you. You know, but it's like every single company who knows us knows we have never signed a contract with any company. If we don't like a component, it doesn't work for us, we don't talk about it, we don't run it.
Yep.
Everything we talk about is stuff we've had success with. Everything that we talk about, we know the companies, because that was really the step that we took next. It wasn't about just knowing the parts. We got on planes, we went out, we met owners of companies, we got to know their R&D, their manufacturing, how they build stuff, because we wanted to have an intimate knowledge about the parts that we were putting R&D.
Exactly. And the companies behind them.
Yeah.
So,
you know, and any company that we've ever done business with, and I would challenge any company out there who said otherwise to us, we will not do what you tell us to do if you say do this for this or this, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We had no part of that stuff. If we like it, we talk about it. If it works, we recommend it. And so along the way, as SlikRok has gotten bigger, we've also been able to put a lot of input in with a lot of companies who build parts, and that is probably the most important thing for us. That was really a game changer. When we were having parts that failed, instead of talking about them, we were telling companies where they were failing or how we thought it could be better. And we started doing a lot of R&D. We have companies out there who use some of our designs and our ideas. And that's been a big deal for us along the way, because ultimately we want the same thing you want. We want the most reliable cars, the best bang for the buck, and we want to have as much fun out there really as possible without carnage and without costing us a bunch of money.
exactly.
You know, and that's been our format for a long time. It's kind of where we came from and what we've done, and things have evolved a whole bunch.
Yes, they have. Let's talk about two big components that, along with portals, how you set them up, and what's the other?
Ooh, driving style.
Yeah. That really dictate if you're gonna like having portals or not.
Yeah. You know, so let's touch on both of those. Number one, how you set up your car is really important. Nobody knows this better than we do. And for you veterans out there who've had portal cars for a long time, you guys know this as well. The components you use and how you set them up is going to dictate the longevity of your vehicle and the success you have with it and how much money you spend. We are big advocates for spending your money one time and doing it properly.
Yep.
And in order to figure that out, we wasted a whole bunch of money, and our information and our failures are at your disposal so you don't make them.
Yep.
That's really what SlikRok is and it's about. We try to help people as much as we can set their cars up when they're having problems. We do this across the board, but obviously portals is something that we talk about probably more than anything, because we build a lot of portal cars. I would argue that we have built more portal cars than anybody out there. I would also argue we have more portal cars than anybody out there. Yeah. And I would definitely argue that we have lost more money than anybody out there in breaking these things. And so,
But what's nice with all that said, the knowledge that we've gained over the last 5-6 years.
That's what we've been after the whole time, was to figure that out. And like, we have cars now that are, I'm not going to say they're invincible because anything can break, but we have extremely reliable big tire portal cars that we abuse heavily, and we rarely break parts.
Right.
We rarely break down, you know.
So let's talk about that. So what are the things that we run into with having portals? What are we maintaining? What issues are we running into? What sticks out?
Yeah, and I guess this is probably the thing that needs to be said for anybody who's looking to get into this. I would argue the only time that we spend more, or the only thing we spend more time on is we shake down our cars a lot more.
Yeah,
You know?
we've kind of gotten in the habit that we go on a big trip, we've done several days of wheeling, we come back and we put the machines up on the lift and we shake everything down.
Right, because it's like, that's what happens. You have bolts that come loose, you have A-arm bolts that come loose. With big tire cars and a lot of rolling mass, you put a lot of strain on stuff, and no matter how much Loctite you use or how great a bolt you use, things have a tendency to start working their way.
And not just bolts, but the other one is Heims as well. Things wear out.
Heims are a big thing, and that seems to be the two chaotic things that happen to us when we do have a big failure is usually a bolt or a Heim joint. And we've used all kinds of Heims, all kinds of brands out there, and there are some that are better than others. But ultimately, parts fail. And, you know, it's like we keep pushing for bigger and better and more. But, you know, we've ran really expensive Heims that have failed. We've ran cheap Heims that have failed. Bolts, on the other hand, there is no exception to good bolts. And just because a bolt comes in the kit doesn't mean you should use that bolt. You know, we've actually had really great success with Polaris bolts.
We'll actually swap a lot of stuff out with Polaris bolts.
Most of our cars, even our non-Polaris cars, have Polaris bolts in them that hold suspension components and steering components together. The thing we like about Polaris bolts, one, they're fine thread, we like the grade, and they will bend before they break. I'm not saying you can't break a Polaris bolt, because we have broke Polaris bolts, but on an average, if I was to draw a pie chart, we've had the most success with Polaris bolts.
So you got the pie chart up there, we'll point at it.
But those, you know, it's like tensile strength is one thing, and this goes along with billet, it goes along with steel. Paper strength is one thing, but we would always prefer to have something bend and break. You go with a really hardened bolt, it may be stronger, but when it breaks, it doesn't bend.
Exactly.
And how many banana bolts have we pulled out of cars?
Oh my goodness, we've got a whole bin sitting over there of them.
Literally, there's 500 of them in this shop, and I don't know why we don't throw them away, but we have a banana bolt pile. And I'll bet.
Because I'm really going to get into this abstract art. We're going to make a statue out of
together. But I would argue that is the only spot where you're going to spend more time with a Polaris car, or not a Polaris car, with a Portal car, if you set it up properly. We are in the habit of, after we wheel hard for quite a few times, we put them in and put them on the lift, we go through them, we shake them down. Any bolt that we find that's bent, we replace it, and we make sure everything's tight before we go back out. With a lot of rolling mass and portals and big tires, obviously frame reinforcement plates are a big deal. We weld ours in. The more bite you can get, you know, UTVs weren't meant to have 35 to 40 inch tires on them. You get a lot of strain on them, it'll start egging out the holes in the frame. There's all kinds of tricks that we've learned over the years to keep cars reliable and to keep problems from happening. And that's a big deal. But let's go back one more time.
Let's look back. Let's talk about the progression of portals from when we first started. And also parts.
Progression, Gen 1s.
Which, by the way, we're still running 2 vehicles going on over 5 years with Gen 1 portals on them.
Got 2 with Gen 1s, have 3, 4 with Gen 2s on them still, I think. We have Gen 1s that we've had for 5 years, I think.
A little over 5 years,
One of those we just changed the oil in for the first time last year.
And we did that on purpose. So we really wanted to see how long we could just let the oil go and see if there was issues.
There's a big argument. Some people online say they change their oil literally every ride. Some do it every 500 miles, some 1,000. If you're in the mud and the water a lot, I
change it more often.
I understand it, but we literally have a car that's gone 4,000 miles in 5 years, and we never changed the oil in it. We pulled it out, I think it was last fall when I drained it. And it wasn't bad. It was there was some flakes in it, but it wasn't horrible.
On average, though, we typically like to do it once a year.
Once a year.
Drop the oil in.
I mean, a lot of it depends on how often you drive your car. So I mean, every 500 or 1,000 miles, this seems to be a good place to, you know, somewhere in there to change oil. But Gen 2s, the upgrade was a bigger output shaft.
So talking about the Gen 1s, what were the failures that we saw in the Gen 1s?
Output shaft and leaks, seals.
And then go to the Gen 2s.
Bigger output shaft, same seals, same leaks. But
then
why that was happening, the Gen 3s were in the works for a long time. And the Gen 3s are an extremely well thought out portal. And I'm not just talking about the seals on it. I'm talking about the bearings are a lot better. The material in the gears is a lot better. The whole design of that portal is substantially better and that has been our go-to for a long time.
So if we were to draw a chart,
Right?
okay, here we are.
Okay.
Gen 1s, Gens 2, a little bit better.
Three's way up.
3s,
There's
way up.
There's
so.
a big step in between there. Like I said, they don't leak the same. The seals are completely different, and they're not floating seals anymore. The bearings are a hell of a lot better, and realistically, the failure that happens in a portal starts at a bearing. If you're doing a high RPM and you hit something hard and you break a tooth, every portal that breaks for the most part is either a bearing failure or it's ramming something. You have a high RPM going on, you hit something, stops, something's
which usually comes from a side impact on them.
And so it's like, but the bearings are unbelievable. I mean, it's like from where the Gen 1s and 2s were to where the 3 is, it's not even in the same ballpark.
Yeah, not just the bearings, but the metal component, everything, like the actual material that they used for the gears and everything in the Gen 3s.
Yeah, it's just a lot better. And I guess the thing that speaks for itself is they've been out for quite a while now. There's a ton of them that have been sold. We had a number at one point. I can't remember what it was. This was last quarter, I think. But there's less than a 1% failure rate.
How crazy is that? With how many they have sold, to have a less than 1% failure rate?
Yeah, and it's like, and I said, in my entire life of running portals, I personally broke one portal in my life. And I know how I broke it, and I deserve to break it. And I hit that damn thing hard, and I broke a tooth out of a gear, and it chucked them out.
When you wheel hard, stuff is gonna break.
Yeah, when you're wheeling like that, I mean, it's like the South guys, the Midwest guys, you know, it's like you get into that sloppy mud and rocks, and you're kind of pinning it to win it, and
it's inevitable.
Yeah, stuff is going to happen.
Okay, so we've talked about kind of where SlikRok came from, why SlikRok took the direction it did. We've covered the progression of portals, how to build the machines, the issues we've had. But the biggest thing, let's talk about what we love about portals.
Yeah, because that's a lot. And every car we have, and we have a lot of them, is on portals. We do not own a car without portals. It is, last year we got a Ranger for just a parts runner, and that lasted all 3 days before we put portals on it because it rode horribly. And that is probably the thing that I like the most about portals is the ride quality. I don't know if it's because I'm getting old or what the deal is, but I like a good, comfortable ride.
Well, because you're still able to get the clearance, but like we talked about before, you don't have to put the preload on your shocks. So you ride so much more smooth.
Yeah, and it's really emphasized with like the Defender or the Ranger. I mean, the Ranger comes with what, 8 inches of ground clearance when it's factory.
He's an age, I swear it was only like 4.
You can run over a curb of the mall that thing clear. That's about it. But you know, you got a crew cab Ranger with 8 inches of clearance. They have what, 2 inches of travel with sway bars on them.
Right.
They don't ride very well. They feel like you're driving a rough Winnebago from the factory. And you know, putting portals on something and essentially long traveling it, you can run a lot softer suspension, and like the ride quality is just a lot better. It's better in all of our vehicles. So that is a big thing that I really like. Obviously, you know, the ground clearance, the articulation, and the capability of the car is huge because we're doing stuff in UTVs now that we didn't think was possible years and years ago. So the evolution of that has come a long way, and I absolutely love that. The other big thing is the dependability of it.
Right.
We don't break cars like we used to. We don't spend money like we used to. We can take a few cars out for the weekend. We come back with them, you know.
Right. Do you remember back in the day we'd have one machine, we'd go out there and we'd have an issue, and we knew that the rest of our day, into the night sometimes, we were fixing cars. What did we want?
We wanted reliability. We wanted function, and we wanted reliability. And we wanted to figure out how much money that cost. You know, and that was really the thing, you know. 4 or 5 years ago, we were $10,000 or $15,000 just in components making a portal car work. Right. You know what I mean? And it's not now. You know, it's like you could build a very reliable, you know, car for a reasonable margin. And when you start figuring out what you spend in parts and axles and belts and in components that are on vehicles compared to just spending the money one time and building a badass car, I mean, it really, it all makes sense now. But then there's the other one thing that I really love about portal cars.
I think I know where you're going.
That's the power of it. You know what I mean?
Undoubtedly.
Everybody sees a portal car come and they're all like, you know, they're just cool. You know, there's a look to them, and they're just fun as hell to build. And let's face it, the reason that we're all in the UTV industry is because you can take whatever platform you want and you can make it into anything you want. the aftermarket support and the companies that are out there, you can, I don't care what you're into, I don't care if you're a dune guy, a mud guy, a trail guy, it doesn't matter. Everybody upgrades their cars and builds it around their riding style, their personality, their family, whatever the case may be. And that is the coolest thing about this whole industry to me. And with the ability of, you know, or with the availability of portals and all the parts and the components now, we have built really badass cars that are functional, dependable, they have power factor, they're safe, and they're reliable. You know?
Exactly. So if there's any point that you're considering portals, you've thought about portals, you have those questions, reach out to us. We're available. And it's like I can't remember what commercial it is, but we know a thing or two because we've seen a thing or two.
We're an insurance commercial now. The farmers.
But really though.
But it's true though. The thing is, we've been doing this for a lot of years. We've built a lot of cars. Like I said, I would argue we build more portal cars than anybody out there has. We know a lot about them. Take advantage of what we know and take advantage of the failures we've had, because that's what's got us here, and it's what's gave us success in what we're building is all the things that we've done wrong.
And we love interacting. So really, reach out with us with any questions you have. Across all our platforms, we are happy to help in any way we can.
Don't listen to the naysayers out there. We've listened to plenty of them too. We see them all the time. Everybody likes to bitch and type in all caps when they have a problem or they're mad about something. Just let that shit go. We have had a lot of success with it. We have a lot of friends who have. There's people all over this country who have. We talk to you guys all the time. And for those of you guys who put the positive stuff down, especially on Portal Nation is a place where you can go. You can ask questions. There is no rebuttal. There is no mean stuff there. That is a place of education and support. Portal Nation was set up for that. Anybody who does anything otherwise on there, they get booted off of there. That is a positive platform where you can ask anything you want. We'll respond with you. We'll talk with you. You can hit us out personally. It doesn't matter. Reach out to us. Talk to us. We're here to help you in any way we can.